It's got to be stated that Brakence is one of the breakout stars in the sort of emo trap, emo pop realm that we've got going on at the moment. There is quite the sort of bubbling underground scene that is really embracing this style of music. I know his first album that came out a few years ago had a really cool aesthetic and approach to the genre and had some pop punk elements to it as well that I thought were pretty cool. But one of my biggest issues were his lyrics. I always thought Brakence just had a bit of a cringy persona and a cringy attitude in a similar way that you get sometimes from like Joji's writing, or perhaps other sort of kind of like guys singing about girls and breakups and shit. And there were other things across the album too. It wasn't just the whole concept of the album that was about that. It just didn't really fully land well with me in that sense. So I've been kind of lukewarm on Brakence up until... There's a big but, boys. Up until all of the singles that came out since that album. Like, everything he's put out since then has been absolutely fire. There was never really a big issue with me in terms of his vocal delivery or the beats he chose. So I always thought there was something there in him, but he has just stepped up his pussy. He has stepped up his game, man. He has really stepped shit up, and he has just started to be way more creative with production and choose his beats in a really cool way that's just made it suit his voice so bloody well. And I've reacted to a few of the tracks since they've been coming out. Argyle and I think Venus Flytrap. Did I do Venus Flytrap? I think I did. I did. Anyway, great songs. And I was just like, holy shit, like this guy is really stepping out of his comfort zone with how he's approaching tracks. And it sounds not really like anyone else out there. Yeah, sure, there are definitely artists in the lane that he's doing. You know, you could even point to someone like Aries, maybe an Eric DOA for some tracks here and there, bits and bobs. And other names as well that I could list off that I'm sure people that love Brakence probably know better than I do. Like that, look, he's not the only artist that's doing this, but he's definitely doing it in a more creative way that I've heard. And I was hyped for this album. I tried my best to steer away from as many tracks as I could because he was releasing a lot of singles and I was not entirely sure how it was all going to come together. And I try not to listen to like half the album before it's come out because I think it ruins the flow of the album and you kind of don't really get the experience that you want. But it was kind of like unbeknownst to me what would make it onto the album and what was just going to be a loosey single. But I just kind of couldn't help myself from trying as many as I could that he put out because every track just seemed to be getting better and better and better. And now that the album's out, I've got to say, man, it's not disappointed at all. It has lived up to exactly what I was expecting. I mean, it is just one of those albums that what I was hoping for has delivered perfectly and maybe even above and beyond to what I had even expected with some of these tracks, to be quite frank. The creativity that goes into some of these songs, the transitions within tracks as well that take the song in really cool directions, and then the transitions beyond that you get from track to track. Like, so many of these songs flow into one another. It's like listening to Pierre Bourne, like seriously, on that level of production masterpiece quality. To be able to do that and to be able to do it well is just such a thing that gets me, man. You get me good with that. You get me real good with that. It's like a nice sounding piano. If you want to get Ryan good, you give me that piano, man, and you give me these transitions, these sweet, sweet transitions. Ooh. One thing I like about Brakence is that his vocal delivery never really shies away from sounding a bit boy bandy. There are times where I'm thinking he sounds a little bit like some like James Arthur or some shit, but on a good level. Like, I'm not trying to say he sounds exactly like that, but there are times where he's kind of straying into that sort of late 90s, early 2000s vibe with his sort of delivery and his coolness about him in such a good way, though. Not to say that all those boy bands were bad, it's just not my cup of tea generally. But I think that's what another thing things that I like so much about him is that there isn't really one genre you can pinpoint. He sounds like so many different things that's just amalgamated together, and he's doing everything so well. Like, the versatility within one album is ridiculous. I mean, you've got Buggin', which has that vibe to it that I just mentioned there. A really, really great track with a great hook. You've got Caffeine, which has the eruption of the ending that just goes in the most bizarre direction you could possibly imagine. He's got these like rap flows in the verses, which again adds to his versatility. He can sing, he can kind of rap too, he can sing over some like hyper pop and change his vocals the way that Caffeine does. I'm blown away every time I hear this, and this has been one of the tracks that's been out a while, but I keep forgetting that it ends like it does. And then when it hits that point of that weird sort of digital mashup of sounds that I truly don't know where he pulls out of, I'm just shocked by it because it sounds so good. If it weren't for the fact that these are some of the best moments on the album, they keep coming with the surprises. Like Venus Flytrap as well, with that starry ending, that sounds really, really pretty. Sort of sounds like something Drain Gang would do. I feel like Blade would end a song like this, or even sing over a beat like this, honestly, for the entire track, as we know Blade would do. But of course, the vocals sound a lot different to what Brakence brings to the table. But this is the thing, you can tell that Brakence is a bit of a nerd because he's pulling from all these different modern sounds that are really bubbling in the underground and have huge followings in the cult like way that they do, and he's just picking and choosing bits and bobs here and there, and he's just making his own sound from all of these things. The swag delivery that he brings on this track as well, the swag delivery across this whole thing, he just seems like he oozes confidence and coolness in a way that I haven't really heard from a singer in quite some time. Probably the last album that I could point to like that was the Aries album from last year. There's that coolness coming through. They just sound young, hungry, and too cool for school. I mean, some of the photos you see of Aries as well, the way he dresses and stuff, he just seems like the coolest mother bitch out there. And Brakence has that same energy with his voice as well. The hook on this track is infectious. It's so good. You've got Intellectual Greed, which brings us back to more of that sort of like pop punk attitude that I think his first album was delivering a little bit as well. Or was it his first album? I don't know how many albums he's had at this point. I'm not gonna lie. I can't remember if he's had two before this one or one of them was a mixtape. I should know this, to be quite frank. I'm stupid for not knowing it. Anyway, it has a bit more of that pop punk delivery with the drums particularly that I really like. And again, he's selling it, you know, he sells all of these different styles. It would be criminal to just pigeonhole him into one sound because he's not doing one thing ever at any point. I mean, if that weren't enough, you got friggin' Teeth, which sounds like a finals boss battle beat on this track, the way it sort of like starts out in that menacing way, and then the like digicore ending as well, which is a sound that I have a bit of a mixed history with. Generally, I think it can sound cool or it can sound a bit grating, but not when Brakence is doing it here. And the fact that it's just mashing together with the original sound that he already had on this track just makes it sound so cool and just adds layers and dimensions to this album, because if you took this ending away, it would still be a great song. But the fact that he's still willing to take his tracks and push the boundaries with the way his song goes, like this, just adds that extra layer of brilliance to what he's doing. I'm going to mention some of the tracks as well that have already been out for a while. I've been pretty familiar with CBD. I think this is a great track. Was always a fan of this the minute it came out. I really like the guitar licks that join up with his voice on the chorus. I think it sounds great. It sounds super catchy. This is the thing with Brakence as well. This guy can deliver some of the best hooks you'll probably hear all year. Even if you don't like the rest of the song or it's not generally your cup of tea, you're definitely going to get some of these choruses stuck in your head. Like, I can't imagine you not having some of these tracks stuck in your head. Like, holy man, these songs get ingrained. I take it better when you don't even ask me. Hypochondriac, like just consistently getting always just stuck in my head, all of the songs. You got Argyle as well, which I will say takes us a little bit back to the Brakence I wasn't too keen on when I first discovered the guy, or first listened to the guy, with that kind of like immaturely presented lyrical arc, which I think probably is down to age, maybe. I think as he gets a bit older, he might sort of present some of these ideas in a more mature fashion, because I still feel like he sounds like a bit of a college kid who might have some reservations with some girls he's been with. They might have done him wrong, and I'm not saying you can't sing about those things, but it's just the way he's presenting it that I find a bit icky to listen to. It's a very minor complaint though, because again, the song is ridiculously catchy and I cannot escape the hook on this track once again. It's not exactly something I'm going to be hugely critical over, when the fact that, you know, out of all the albums I've heard this year, this is one of the songs that will probably be stuck with me for years to come, despite the fact that I'm not exactly a big fan of the lyrics. It might sound a bit lazy, but I've always had the attitude of, you know, if it's catchy and it sounds really good, you can forgive lyrics in a lot of places. I think some critics or music reviewers out there can really come off quite pretentious if they're talking about how lyrics are always bad and, you know, lyrics are everything and things like that. I don't think lyrics aren't necessarily everything. Music is poetry, music is art. But not everyone is a poet. You've got to remember that. Like, not everyone is a poet, and you're not going to get the best lyrics out there all the goddamn time. But anyway, Deepfake. Let's talk about that one, my friends. Deepfake. Deepfake? This guy pulling out some friggin' American football, sort of Midwest emo 90s shit right at the end out of absolutely nowhere. And it sounds so good. Where did this come from? One of my favorite things out there is when you're listening to an artist who clearly is as much of a nerd, or maybe even a bigger nerd than you are when it comes to music. Because this guy pulling out this just goes to show that he is an absolute music nerd. Another example of this is probably Quadeca, who I know features in a lot of those Hive Mind videos and makes some good music himself, by the way. I haven't reviewed his newest album, but it was good. But when you listen to him talk about music in those videos or interviews, the guy is an absolute nerd. And that is one of my favorite things, when you come across a musician who is absolutely the biggest nerd out there when it comes to music, because there is absolutely no way he can't be a nerd if he's pulling out shit like this and making it sound so good at the end of his track. And it just adds to that sort of emo atmosphere that the rest of the song brings to the table. Some of the lyrics are really emotionally hard hitting on this track, talking about how his personality is fake and all that kind of stuff. And it just is topped off by that great ending. Look, man, I could wax lyrical all day about this album. I think it's one of the most super creative albums that I've heard all year. I haven't even mentioned every single track, but I could be here for so long if I did. And I think I'd probably end up repeating myself with how creative it all sounds, how catchy it all is. The hook game is brilliant. Brakens' delivery is infectious, and you just want to feel everything he says, because he has a really emotionally potent delivery while also just keeping everything sounding so fresh, so modern, so unique with the genre mashups that he's throwing out here and pulling out of absolutely nowhere. Like, there's just so much that I love about this album, and I think it is one for the music nerds in that sense, because you can pick out and pinpoint all these different things he's doing and everything just sounds so good. And this is where I will want to throw out a bit of a trepidatious prediction, because predicting music is very difficult, and predicting the landscape of music is very difficult as well. But I have a feeling, and I don't think it started with Brakens. You know, I think Brakens is doing it excellently, but I have a feeling that this is the 2020s, the sound of the 2020s. And let me just put the shit down. That was meant to be really dramatic and it wasn't. The 2020s, my friends, right? I think there's going to be a wave of music sounding like this. And I think this is echoing the sort of way that we came about trap music in the 2010s. The way that trap music kind of lingered on in the mainstream public and the mainstream musical landscape, and initially was absolutely rejected by the critics, the nerds. You know, you got your Young Thug, who initially didn't really get a great reception from the nerds out there. Future, Playboi Carti, people did 180s on all of these artists. And then as years went by, everyone went back to it and went, yeah, okay, this is actually really good. And as time went on, it became, you know, particularly in America, the biggest thing out there. You know, Lil Uzi Vert had massive hits. I think this is what we've got coming in the 2020s. I think initially people are going to hear stuff like this and think, don't know, not really for me. I think it's a bit meh. And then they'll come around on it, and it's going to slowly start to grow in the mainstream. Because I think an artist like Breakance, an artist like Aries, an artist like many of the other names I've said in this video, or the styles of music I've mentioned, has a place in popular music. And I think we're going to slowly start seeing more artists like this that take over the public eye, the sort of the spotlight, and have music in this kind of way. Because it sounds modern, it sounds fresh, and it sounds like it appeals to the young kids. And I'm not even a young kid myself, but I'm out here repping this because it sounds great. I just have a feeling. I have a feeling. And I think the influence it's going to have is going to be really good. Whether it's Breakance that does get big or has that influence on a mainstream level, I don't know. But what he's doing and what other artists of this lane are doing, I think are going to do that. And I think people will look back in a few years and look at this and think, yeah, this is really cool. And it's going to be big. I just have that feeling. I have a feeling. And I'm sorry that I just went on for like 2 minutes talking about that, but I just wanted to get it out there. Because I think there's something in this, man. There's something in it. And if there isn't, I don't really care, because I love it anyway, and I'm going to keep playing the shit out of this, because this is huge album of the year contender for me. It just sounds so good at every point. Like, all of these genre creations, the fusions and the shit is really fun. It's really, really just exciting. It takes you in directions that you're not expecting all the time, even when you've listened to the song multiple times, and it just sounds great. 9 out of 10. It's my first 9 of the year. I love this shit, and it's just going to be so replayable. Not in the way that Vale Smith plays this, because he rinses Breakance, but Vale Smith will hopefully see this review and he'll know and be happy that I love this, possibly as much as he does. And that's my review. That is it. I have a feeling about this sound, man. I really do. And I hope you enjoy this album as much as I do, because I think it's fantastic. I think it's bloody good. So thank you as always for watching. Please tell me your thoughts on this album. Please tell me your thoughts on my prediction as well. I don't give you guys predictions often, so I want to see what you think in the comments about that. Have a good day. Subscribe if you haven't already. Check out my Patreon as well. I would love more people on there. There's a Discord server you can join, and we're doing albums of the year that I'm going to be doing a video on of all the people in my Discord server. So please check it out. Please, please, please. Thank you. Subscribe. Goodbye.